Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out People of Reddit. Story 1. Another tale of not getting paid. Many moons ago I worked at a little neighborhood dive bar. I opened the bar at 6 AM and worked until 2, when the other bartender came in. My regulars were old folks, bikers, and construction guys who came in when the weather stopped their work. I never met the bar owners. The other bartender would give me my check each week. One day the beer vendor shows up but insisted on cash on delivery. This had not occurred during my 6 months or so of working there. Then the liquor guys did the same thing. Each time I would have to call the other bartender and get approval for these payments, if I even had the cash on hand. Curious, but shit happens. Didn't really think much about it until I got a call at the bar one morning asking for the owner. Told them the owner wasn't in. Could I take a message? Sure. Tell them their one-way tickets to another country are reserved for the next day. I mentioned this to one of the regulars who informed me the owners were running from something/someone, I won't go into detail here, and asked if I had been paid recently. I told him I had not been paid for 2 weeks. He told me good luck in getting paid. Oh, really? So, I decided my last day was going to be a party. I gave away drinks for hours. Word got out as to what I was doing and the other bartender showed up at noon. I told him I wanted my paycheck. Now. He pulled cash from the safe and gave me my 2 weeks' pay. I poured myself a drink and toasted my regulars and left. The bar did indeed shut down that day. But I got paid. Story 2. Try to defraud me. Enjoy your drive to nowhere. 2 years ago I had a side gig reselling books. Most of my sourcing came from garage sales, estate sales, the usual suspects. But twice a year my sourcing came exclusively from college students trying to unload their books as fast as possible and hopefully for more than the bookstore would buy them back for. This fateful day I stumble across a Facebook marketplace posting for a barely used textbook worth around $30 on its own, but alongside it, the very valuable online course code worth well over $100. The post reads specifically that the asking price of $50 is for both the book and the code. A few follow-up messages confirming the product and the price, and I find myself 20 minutes away at a mall parking lot to pick up the stuff. I hand her the cash, and she hands me the book, without the online course code. I ask where the course key is and she says, "Oh, I just realized how valuable that is, so this is just for the book." I tell her that wasn't the deal, I wanted both items and drove an hour one way to pick up the items. She refuses to give me the key, even initially refusing to give me my money back for the book. I finally get my money back and we part ways. Frustrating, but not super unusual for Facebook Marketplace people. An hour later I see the same post, this time with an asking price of $150. This is about what the book and course code would cost brand new from a reputable seller, and figure this will sit for a while. Fast forward a week and I see the posting still up. With college resale season dying down, I figure I have some time to exact some revenge. I hop over to an alternate Facebook account with a fake name and profile and message her that I am in immediate need of the book and account key and will pay $300 if she can drive up to my college an hour away and drop it off tonight. I made up some story about the professor docking us a letter grade for not having the book for class the next day and would do whatever it took to get the book, only I don't have a car. Excited to earn an extra $250 on top of what she almost sold it for the prior week, she immediately agrees. I tell her I get off work at 9 PM, and if she wanted to meet me there at the end of my shift I'd have the cash on me. I tell her if I don't message back I'm probably finishing up my side work, but just ask for me up front and they'll find me. 9 PM rolls around and I get a message from her saying I'm here. That was the last we ever spoke. Story 3. Birthday Party Face Painter. I was browsing one of those coupon websites, think Groupon etc., and came across a face painter deal. My daughter's birthday was coming up so I quickly read through the fine print before paying. I immediately contacted the lady and gave her 6 dates to check if she was available. She said no to every single one. She then said she was only available on weekdays, even though that wasn't in the fine print. I said okay, and gave her more dates to choose from. Again, she was busy on all of them. So I asked her to just give me a date and I'd make it work. We get to the day of the party and guess who doesn't show up? She messaged me back after the party and says she couldn't make it, no reason given, and she wouldn't be refunding the money. I contacted the coupon place and they got the money back. It still sucked that we didn't have a face painter at the party, but the kids had fun anyway. Cue revenge. I created a fake FB profile with her phone number, and posted face painting party giveaways on different local mums pages for about 6 months until she changed her number. Story 4. Ruin my evening, I'll return the favor. After frying my brain at work and hovering in between the mental states of this is fine and I'm not okay, working into the night some days, it unexpectedly paid off as I recently got a promotion. I went to dine out with my well, he didn't want to go, but I said I'd go alone, so he decided to tag along in the end. I made a reservation and was paying for the meal. We were seated at a table next to others our age in their 20s on a date, around the same time. We had actually walked past them in the waiting area, and from the way they were dressed they appeared mature, or the type that was reserved in their judgment. I didn't expect at all to be a subject of their conversation. We were seated so close to each other. My and I are long past the mind your manners phase and will order or eat without reservation. We turn off our brain when we're with each other, and I do admit that my acting a bit ditzy set me on her radar. One of the items I ordered was an extremely small skewer, about 30 grams of meat. It was especially delicious. When the server came, I asked to order an additional 2 servings on a whim. The girl started whispering to her date. I caught wind of their conversation only because she reenacted the way I requested those skewers mockingly and seemed to say it just loud enough for me to hear her. In the amount of time we sat next to them, she'd already assumed that my boyfriend was paying for our food. Something about me ordering the 2 skewers in the way that I did, and all the girls she'd assumed would do, put my boyfriend into a position where he was forced to pay, then that girls like us were the type to live off of our parents' money. For the record, my dad's been disabled since I was a teen, and my mom quit everything to take care of him. I grew up poor. Her date noticed and tried to redirect the topic. I was a bit hurt because 1, we are the same gender, 2, she had taken me, someone she didn't even know, as one of those girls who'd mooch off their she generalized me, 3, that she felt she was right with such conviction to intentionally make my Friday unpleasant, and 4, I worked so hard to be able to unwind on Friday evening, only to be reduced to her assumptions, and I am not beyond being petty at this point. I asked for the check and signed as I would have done normally and she had taken notice of it. But I then decided to be absolutely petty and glare at her several times throughout the rest of the time in each other's company, particularly when it was their turn to pay, as she and her date split the check and calculated how to split it. I may have been a topic in her evening, but I wanted to make her feel what it was like to be the subject of someone else's evening. She seemed to get it. But sincerely, I hope before you open your mouth to comment about anyone else, you have something to back it up, especially in front of your date. Story 5. No, I will not open another bottle of wine for you. Repost. I had originally posted this on the wrong subreddit and I am forever embarrassed. I work at a local Irish pub in Ma. A woman asked for a taste of a Merlot blend we offer. I brought her the taste and waited at the table to see how she liked it. Her nose scrunched up and asked if I could open a fresh bottle because this one had been opened too long. In that moment I decide I am too cranky to argue as I am in the middle of my double shift. I was the one who opened that bottle for another customer earlier in the day. So I responded yes of course and I would be right back. The woman's table was out of sight from my view behind the bar, so I just poured another taste from the same wine bottle into a new glass and brought it over. Of course she was so pleased and said the new bottle tasted much better. What a silly goose. Do I feel a little guilty that I did that? Yes I do, but the glass of wine is $10 so she can get over it. Story 6. Caution signs are there for a reason. The post about a mailbox being damaged over and over again, until the owner hardened it with concrete and rebar, reminded me of an incident that took place in my neighborhood about 15 years ago. I lived on a narrow one-way street, with houses on the left and on-street parking on the right. None of the houses had driveways, and the lots were narrow. Think row housing with detached homes. There was a handicapped parking spot directly across the street from me, but rarely used. A new guy moved into the house next to my next-door neighbor. He had a large pickup truck, and would park in the handicapped spot, even if a parking space was available. A few weeks later he was ticketed for parking there. He continued parking there, probably accruing more tickets, until his truck was towed. He then started parking his truck in his front yard, parallel to the street. However, in order to that, he was cutting across part of my next-door neighbor's front yard. It wouldn't have been an issue, except the tires on the truck had raised treads and were killing the grass. My neighbor asked him a couple times not to do that, but the driver said he wasn't doing any harm. He called the driver's landlord, who said he would talk to his tenant, but that did nothing. First my neighbor put some grass seed down, with some short sticks and some twine marking the reseeded area. The truck just drove across. My neighbor then put an orange cone there, but the truck drove right over it. The driver did have the courtesy to replace the cone in its spot, but was still cutting across the front corner of the lot. Here it comes, he pounded a piece of rebar into the ground with a sledgehammer, so that at least 2 or 3 feet were under the grass, then put the cone on top of the rebar that was sticking out above ground. He put a large caution sign saying not to drive over it because the cone was anchored into the ground. The sign was large enough to read from a distance. The sign was an afterthought, but that actually saved him from being held liable for the damages. That evening, the pickup truck drove over the cone again, or attempted to. I wasn't home, but a few neighbors were and they described it as a grinding sound. The truck got hung up on the cone, and then the driver accelerated hard to get past the cone. The truck lurched forward and hit the front porch steps. Fluid was leaking out. The driver came over yelling and pounding on his door, but the neighbor was inside calling 911. The cruiser arrived and the deputy heard both stories separately. He pointed out that there was a warning sign, that it was on my neighbor's property, and the truck had no business destroying the cone. He told the driver that he would probably have to replace the cone that was torn apart. He also warned the driver that any form of retaliation would be unacceptable. The landlord was called, and when he saw the tire damage to his front lawn, much worse than my neighbor's, and the bashed porch, he told the pickup driver that he had to find another place to live. It took almost 4 months to evict the driver, but it happened eventually. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.